All right. All right. Thank you all for coming today. Today we're going to talk about simple reports in Evergreen since the upgrade. We did a demo prior to the upgrade, so this will be a refresher. But if you have questions or want to see an example, please feel free to put that in the chat. I always default to a weeding report when I do demos, so any special ones that we could test out with the simple reporter would be great. So if you have an idea, put them in the chat and we'll give it a shot at the end. So I wanted to again go over the support website. I know we sent out an email this morning regarding the annual report. I know it's everyone's favorite thing in the entire world. They love running reports for the annual report. So we are looking for volunteers to kind of chat about that experience and see how we can streamline it a little bit better for you folks and make improvements on ways of making it a less painful experience. And so on the support website, what I started doing, you can visit it at spark or support.sparkpa.org, and it'll take you to our support portal. Again, you can see all of our topics are broken out down here. You also have a search feature up top if you aren't sure which category the info you're looking for is under. But at the bottom, there's one just for simple reports. And what I started doing were making some screenshot examples with step-by-step instructions on how to do specific reports. If you hit the home, it'll give you a walkthrough of creating a report, the tips that we'll go over later, and then the examples. So you'll see I have one for most popular items using the simple reporter. This will be a fun one for the end of the year, I think, if you wanted to say, hey, maybe as a gift giving guide, here are the most popular items that were checked out at the library. So something like that. I know that was a popular one when I was working in a library. We also have one on an email list, and then we have one for circulations by owning library broken down by the circulating library. And this one will help for resource sharing projects and the new ILL requirements. So it'll have step-by-step instructions on what filters and everything to pick. And then it'll also have just the full screenshots of what your display fields should look like or could look like, and then the filters. So we'll be building that repository of info. So if you have a request, please let us know and we can document it. All right, so we're going to get started. We're going to go through to a walkthrough. We'll do usage cases and tips, and then we'll answer any questions. So this is on production. This is the live server, and you'll find under simple reports under administration. And this is the symbolized screen that will load. You have two options. You have my reports and you have my outputs. The reports are all of the reports that you've built and can edit or clone. And then my outputs will be the ones that you ran. And it'll give you either the output or an error. So it doesn't give you exactly info on it, on what is wrong with the report, but it does say there's a running error. So not as helpful in that respect. But to get started, you're gonna click New. You have your report type, and you have a few options to pick from. You have circulation, collections, weeding, patrons, and billings and payment transaction summaries. And these are just the types that you can pick from. So one that I got the other day was for a list of patrons, like a count of patrons. So let's try that one. So once you pick your type, you're going to want to name it. It could be anything you want. As you can see, I have some silly names in mind, but you can be very clear and precise in yours if you want. Patron count. Let's do by permission group. You can save it here. And this is the nice thing about the simple reporter is you can work on the template or the report essentially and save it at any time and come back and edit it. So that's nice. So once you have your title, you can work through the tabs. You don't have to go in this order, but it makes the most sense. You have your display field. So what are the things that you want to see at the end result of your report? You have your output order. You have filters. So how are you going to narrow down all of the information in the database to just the info you're looking for? And then your output options. So like I said, this is going to be a patron count by permission group. So you'll see that you have common fields, which will be just ones that are most commonly used in a report on patrons. You have name fields, so if you need specific info about the patron. Contact fields, so phone numbers, contact info, stuff like that. And then address related fields. Remember that you have the option of having a mailing address and a physical address. So be mindful of what you're picking. And then you have full physical address too. So, and then you have your library info. And if you can't figure out which field or topic your field is in, you can always click on all fields and just scroll through them all. So that's really nice. So for my patron group, let's start with the common fields. We want a count of user IDs. So you can do this two ways. You can either use the user ID or you can use primary barcode, but you want to count regardless of which one you want to use, you want a count of that. And then we want the main permission group because we want to see how many Juve versus how many adults. And then let's say we can do, if we're going to do multiple libraries, let's say, let's have the home library name. Oh, we can do home library system too, so that's fun. So those are the main things that I'm looking for in my report output. And you can see I went in this order just because that's how they appeared. But if I wanted them, the columns to appear in a different order, I can sort it here by using these directional arrows, or I can go over to the output order tab and do some more finessing in that area. So say I want the home library to be first, and then I want the main permission group to be second, and then I want the user ID to be third. But I want, when it displays, I want it to do descending alphabetizing of the home library, and I want the smaller numbers on top. That's a weird way to word that, but okay. So you can adjust these however you want. Again, this does not prevent you from doing this filtering and sorting in Excel or another software, but if you want to be able to send this to someone on a regular basis and you want it arranged in a specific way to make it easier for them, you'll want to use the output order. So then the filters. Filters are really important. You can't run the report without them because otherwise you'll get literally everything. And for most of us, we don't really need everything. We only need specific info. So it's going to give you suggested fields based on the fields that you picked in your display options. But then again, it also has common fields, name fields, contact fields, all the same ones from the first display set. And it'll also tell you what you picked for your display. So that'll kind of give you some help to decide, okay, well, which ones do I really need to filter on? So for patrons, a good one to always include is, are they deleted? You don't want to include anyone that's deleted because they're not there technically. If you folks use the active flag, which a lot of us have been, especially for staff accounts, so you want it to be true. You want people who are active but not deleted. let's limit it by our home library. And say you're doing a few libraries, you can do in a list, and then that way you can have multiple libraries. And let's do permission group, because we don't want those staff accounts. We just want maybe Juve and adult 3-year, things like that. And then the big one that I like to include is the privilege expiration date. I like to do date, but that you also have the option to do year and month. Now this one's important, just like in the other reporter, you want to make sure that you have your transform, because if you put raw date or raw data, it's going to look for everything that's down to the second, and that's not helpful. We just want a date. And I'm going to do on or after a specific date. So let's look and see how many patrons are in a specific library by permission group who have cards that expire after today. And let's see, I want to do adult, and I want to do adult 3-year. So all of the accounts that you want, you're going to pick me one by one. Let's see. Let's do courtesy 3-year. Let's just do those just to see. And then our home library. So let's pick, I'm going to pick on my friends in Lackawanna because I know that info the best. So if you are going to, let's do the Abington library. So it looks like we're good. You can take one quick look. Again, we have our is deleted flag as false. We have our active as true. We have our home library because we only want one library. We don't want all of Spark. And we have specific permission groups that we want rather than all of the permission groups, because just a reminder that your staff accounts that you log into the software with are also listed there. So when you're running a report on accounts, make sure you exclude those because they're not patrons, they're just staff. And then we have an expiration date, so we don't get people that are expired. So I feel like we have all of our info there. And then we can go to our outputs. I see a couple questions in the chat. Let me just finish this and then I will answer those. So you have a few options. You have Excel, you have CSV, you have HTML. The HTML is the one that creates that link that people can click on to view it and download it. So if you're sending it to someone, it might be helpful to include that. And then you have bar charts and line charts. You can again set it up to reoccur, or you can run it now. And you can again also email it to someone. So when you're ready to run it, you hit save and schedule a report. You'll get this little pop-up over here. I think they're technically called toasts, that it's successful. And then it'll take you back to my reports. Now, the thing that's a little weird about this, well, not weird, just a different workflow, is that it's going to tell you the next time it's running. So it's running now, because that's today's date and time. And then when it's done, it will put the date in the last run date. You're not going to see anything over here in the outputs until it's completely done running. So it's running now, and we just have to wait. So while we wait for this report, Natalie asked, are stat cats included in the field options? So stat cats are one of the reports that we still have to use the full reporter for. The simple reporter doesn't have the flexibility for municipalities and those things. So unfortunately, we still have to use the old one for that one. So if we wanted to run the same report, you know, patrons by municipality, we'd have to use the full reporter. I just don't think it has the capability at this point to do that. And then Linda asks, please explain the difference between home library and system library. For us, would WAPI be a system and home be Milford or Dickman? Also, what is an ancestor and descendants? Okay, so that's a really good question. Let's go back to our report. So this is a good example. Thank you, Linda, for asking this, because I can then show you how to clone, delete, or edit. So we're going to edit this. And again, it's going to preload everything we had, and we can, make adjustments. So in this case, home library is the library that the patron is registered at. So when you fill out a library application form, home library is the library that you pick. Let's go to the edit screen right here. So that library is here. Patrons tend not to have a home library of a system. So in your case, for WAPI, patrons should not be registered at the WAPI level or at the WAPI Pike level. You would always want to pick Milford or Digman, or both, if you wanted to run the report on both. Some things like items can be cataloged at the WAPI Pike level, but traditionally most people have an individual building or library if you're looking at items. Does that help, Linda? You normally wouldn't use system in your setup. System in the system we could use for larger things like circ policies or hold policies, but when you're cataloging and talking about people, you usually do an individual library.
So an example of a system topic would be if you're going to the county commissioners and you want county-wide numbers and you have a county system, then you might run system-wide reports on counts and totals of that.
But you would still pick just WAPI and Pike.
Oh, yes,
Milford and
yes.
Digman. You're never going to be able to run it on Pike. Let me go back to the report.
Yes, you would have to pick all of the individual locations. Yeah.
For here.
Yeah.
So if you are looking at descendants and ancestors for, let me go back to the account because this makes it look easier. So if we were looking at something for all of WAPI, we would look at WAPI. If we were looking for descendants, these are the descendants of WAPI. And then if you just wanted the descendants of WAPI Pike, it would just be your Digman and Milford. And then ancestor would be Spark, because Spark is the top. Kind of like a family tree if you think about it that way. I think about it actually. Who are your children and who are your siblings? So Pike and Wayne are siblings, and Digman and Milford are the children. Okay. Any other questions? That was a good question. Yes, Melissa wants to go over monthly stats. We can definitely do that. Let me get back to that screen. Let's see if our report finished too. So let's close that. Why did my report not finish? So this is the only thing I don't like about it, is you don't know why. Let's give it a couple more minutes to run. It's the first of the month, so other people may be running a lot of reports. So if we wanted to do monthly stats, it's a good example. You would do obviously new, and you're going to pick circulation. And I would pick common builds. That's usually where I start. And when you're building a count of circulations, you're always going to pick circulation ID, and you always want it to be count, unless in rare instances you want to count the unique times something happens, but those tend to be few and far between. So you have your count of circ, you can then, depending on your library and how you want to report this info, you could do the checkout library name, so where the items were checked out. If you want, you could have it tell you if it was a circulation versus a renewal. And you can also ask it what kind of renewal. Was it automatic, or was it something that the staff did or the patron did through the OPAC? Again, you don't have to have those layers, but you can. And you don't have to have it in the output, but I tend to like to have the date that the report is reporting on, because sometimes if you get a bunch, it's easier to troubleshoot which one you're missing if you know the date that the info is for. So this is how I would start out in my display order. Again, you don't need all of them. If you just want raw circulation, you could take out the circulation versus renewal and then the renewal type if you want. You could also put in the owning library. So if you're in a resource sharing group, you can look to see, okay, we checked out X number of items owned by X library. That one's always fun. In your output order, again, you can sort all of your info. What order do you want the columns to appear? How do you want the numbers to be displayed at the final? Forgot a title. Again, whatever order you want these to be displayed in. And then you have your filters. So again, here are the ones that we picked in our output. So it's going to give us some suggestions. Obviously, I want to know the checkout library, and say if you want to do multiple libraries, you could do in a list, or you can do equals to have one library. And this just is highlighting Linda's question about ancestors and descendants. Oh, and then we want the circulation time. When did this happen? So you can do, if you're going to run this to run all the, like automatically every month, it's going to sound weird, but you're going to pick age. You're not going to pick like month. I guess you could do month, but it's not going to give you that relative date any longer. So if you pick age, it's going to give you the option to do how many days ago, how many weeks ago, how many months ago. So say you want to do it monthly, you're going to pick months. So remember, circulation start date, transform age, months, and I'm just going to say 1 month. And we'll pick on climber because they asked the question. So we're going to pick climber for 1 month. And we're going to do output options. And again, you have all of your, you can do Excel, you can do CSV. But this is, if this is something that you want to get every month, you can do reoccurring. You just click on the checkbox. And we're going to again say how many, we want 1 month. And we're going to, you can run it now. And if you run it today, it will give you November. Or you can schedule it to run on the 1st of the month for January, and it'll give you December. And you'll put your email address in and then save and schedule your report. I don't want to do that because I'll probably forget that I set it up as reoccurring and then be confused why I keep getting the emails. But that would be how you would set it up. So remember, the big difference between the full reporter, or I think the traditional reporter is what we decided to call it, is that age. Instead of a relative month or day ago, it's going to be age, and then you'll pick from there. You can't run things in the future. So if you're using this for like a patron list or something like that, and you want to know whose card is expiring in the future, you can't. You have to run it that day. But if you want to schedule for something that happened in the past, this is the way to go about it. Does that help? Okay, I'm gonna save it and I'll put that one on our list of for the website so we can document that one too. So I'm gonna close that. It still hasn't run. That's weird. I'm not seeing, Katie, are you seeing anything that would make it not run?
No, I don't think so.
Something
Go
must
back
be
to how
wrong.
you have your dates at the bottom.
I have a date. I have a date on or after. Well, that's a bummer. I guess we'll try our monthly circulation. Let's see if that one runs. So we'll just run it for the one time. Okay, so it says it's running. So let's give it a minute in case others are running. Are there any questions while we wait? Oh, it finished. Okay, so here's the HTML. And so Abington has 9 courtesy, 37 courtesy 3-year, 351 adults, and 4,190 adult 3-year. So if you wanted something like that. And then our monthly circulation finished too. That one didn't run. Why didn't that one run? I'm batting 1,000 today, folks.
Oh, wait, hold on. Since you have the age equals 1 month,
Ago?
is it doing that thing where it wants it to be like on at a specific time? Should it be? Okay.
No, this
They
is the one
changed how
thing.
these.
Yeah. Let's do a date.
Yeah.
And I will confirm that that is how you have to do it, but I'm almost positive it is.
Yeah, they changed the language, I think, to make it a little bit more accessible, which I appreciate. But those of us who'd kind of learned, you know, how to make the old reporter do what we wanted, and now we have to kind of relearn some of those things.
Let me rerun it. With the new name. So just so you're aware, when you edit it, the name, it doesn't run a new instance of it. It changes the name. So that's not helpful.
Oh, so that's the old one. Okay.
That's the old one. So it's probably still running. So what you could do,
take a few minutes.
Yeah, what you could do is you could clone it. And then here's our old friend clone. And it'll populate everything. So let's have it run. So we have our clone and it's running. I'm just popping that open in case because it'll repopulate that URL.
Oh, it'll run it over the old one. Interesting.
Yeah. A little confusing, but okay. Well, let's give it a minute to run. Are there questions in the meantime? So I do want to point out that anything that you've created in the full reporter or traditional reporter will stay there. These don't kind of cross in between each other. So you could, in theory, have multiple sets of reports running in the simple reporter and in the full reporter. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, it's still running. So also there are no folders. So be mindful of that. You'll want to make sure your naming conventions are clear. You'll want to make sure you keep it nice and organized for yourself. You can do report filters to find things. So say you want a report that contains the word test, because there's one down here that I know we'll find, and I didn't get anything, but don't worry. That's because case sensitivity is specific. It's case sensitive in this instance. So test with an uppercase T and test with a lowercase t are two different things in this filter. So you can use any of these filters to help you find, operators to help you find. I find contains to be the easiest one to work with, unless you know exactly what you named a template or a report. You can always clear it. You can do it by date. In my head, I don't find that as easy to navigate, but you can run that if you want. There is no way to share a report template other than, yep, Natalie, you're right on. And Natalie and I are thinking the same thing. There is no way to share the reports like you can with the traditional reporter. So that's why I've been trying to populate this with examples so that you folks can either we can do step-by-step instructions, kind of like the patron emailing list example, and it'll have step-by-step, or we can do screenshots of the display and the filters, and that could help people navigate that. It would be helpful if you let me know what way you feel is better to share this info. Step-by-step is obviously helpful. I know some people like just can parse out what they need from the screenshots. So if you find both helpful, I can include both. Or if you need videos, we can do videos. I guess everyone has a different learning style, so we want to make sure we can accommodate everyone. So this is kind of what we've come up with so far for the simple one. And here's my second run of it. As you can see, the times are finished. And here's the dates. So this is all the climber circulation for the month. And then the easiest way to auto, meaning it auto renewed, desk meaning someone at the front desk did it, or OPAC meaning the patron did it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. While we wait, let me just we'll go over some use cases for the simple reporter. I think we kind of highlighted a lot of them during the demo, but this is specifically designed for circulation, basic circulation, weeding, collections, reports, patrons, and bills and transaction summaries. So anything that has some more complex or needs specific data sources, so like acquisitions or open circulations or payments by bill type, will still need to use the full reports module or the traditional one. Again, things with that require nullability or statistical categories, we will still need to use the full one for that. But this simple one, for most reports. You could probably build in the simple one. And again, you can have an email to yourself and you can have them reoccur. Some tips. So when you're building a report, it's good to write it all out, or you don't have to technically write it out, but just think about it as a sentence, and it'll help you identify what components you need. So if you are running a monthly circulation report, think about all the components you'll need. So if it's monthly, you're going to need the date. If it's circulation, you're going to need at least the count of the circulation and the library that circulated it. And then think about a little bit more granularity if you need it for any reports. Do you need to know if it was renewed or not? If it was renewed, do you need to know if it was automatically renewed or initiated by staff? Things like that. And then that'll kind of help narrow down your filters and your display fields. It's always a great practice when you're running things on people or items to make sure that you include the is deleted so that you're not getting things that have been deleted. Just because it's not visible in the catalog or in the staff client doesn't mean it's not somewhere in the back end. So if you delete an item, it's still there in the background. So if you accidentally delete something, that's why we can bring it back. So that's why when you're building a report, it's helpful for you to make sure you filter out those items. Try and have a naming convention. I'm really bad at them, so learn from my mistake. Try and make sure you have a consistent one just to help yourself. You know, if it's reoccurring, maybe put reoccurring at the beginning. There is that flag that'll say it's reoccurring, but sometimes it's easier to read it in the name. And then filters, you can do a lot with filters in the searching of the template or your reports, but you can also do it when you're building it. So sometimes it's easier to put a lot of information in the display fields. And then when you run it, it will help you identify if it's running correctly. For example, if you're running a report on something that, you know, looking for a specific patron under a certain circumstance, like I need patrons that who have an expired account and are using a certain permission group, have that in the results so that you know, okay, if I find my test patron, I have confidence that it's running correctly. As well as then you can scale it back on the displays if you don't need it, or you can add more filters as you're working through the testing of it. As always, you can contact us at support for help. We're very happy to help with reports. And as you ask them, I'm going to try and document them so that if others have the same needs, we can start to have a growing collection of those on the support page. And you can also email the reports list. There is a listserv. You can join it by visiting that website and signing up, or you can visit the support help desk and look for the listserv. And there's a whole page dedicated to all the various listservs that we have. If you have any questions about the listservs, Kat is our go-to person for that. So just submit a ticket. Oh, and I forgot to include the link. So the link for the survey, if you don't mind, letting us know how we did, I'll put that there. Oh, Katie filled it in too. So are there any questions? I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for just a second.